Thank you both for joining us. Maybe before we get started, just a quick introduction. Tell us who you are, Rectangle Health, and kind of what you guys do.
Rebecca Russo, Senior Operations Manager for the Partner Channel. Joined Rectangle Health about 4 years ago, right when we were launching the Partner Channel. I came from about 15 years of corporate banking experience, so new industry, new role, just really was jumping in, like diving off the deep end type of thing. And I owe all of this for the recruitment of Sam Iverson over here.
Well, thanks. Sam Iverson, it's got me still Senior Director of Digital Operations. I am actually, as of 2 weeks ago, going back into sales operations, slight nuance. Started in sales ops. I've owned learning and development for our organization. I stood up our CSM team, but one of the biggest things, and probably one that I'm the most proud of, was when we finally made the decision to go down the partner path. I worked with InPartner, brought that on board and got that implemented and stood up. So I heavily manage a lot of our tech. So this is probably one of my favorite pieces to work with.
Yeah, I did not pay him to say that.
Yet.
April may have. Real quick, will you give our audience a little bit of background on Rectangle Health? Because I'll be honest, when I first started working with you guys, I thought you did something completely different to what you actually do. So it might be a little helpful.
Okay. So Rectangle Health, we started out as a payments company, really facilitating different ways for doctors, specifically healthcare practitioners, to ensure that they are collecting payment. You'd be amazed at how many services rendered go unpaid in the medical industry. And over the last few years, we've evolved. We've added on complementary products, which we'll talk a little bit about. But we've really evolved into more of a platform specialized around simplifying the business side of healthcare for practitioners, because they want to treat patients. They don't want to deal with the business side of things. Giving more flexible options to patients when it comes to things like paying bills or communications back and forth with practice. And really, in doing so, enhancing the doctor-patient relationship. So, in a nutshell, that's what Rectangle Health does.
That's great. I love it. Okay, well, let's start. And Rebecca, maybe you were just starting, so maybe you don't know the answer to this, but maybe Sam, you do. Just give us a little background. Why did Rectangle start to make the jump into a channel partner program to begin with?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of conversations were had at different conferences, and there's some pretty heavy hitters in the industry that would naturally align with us. And they started to ask the question, do we have a partner program? Do we have any sort of partnership? And for the first year that I was here, I've been here 5 years now, the answer was really no. And there wasn't a lot of reaction to that. Now, my old boss at the time, who was the VP of operations, he'd go into the executive meeting and say, this is something we're going to have to do, right? You're starting to hear the buzz. And it was, I think we can wait, And our CRO went to a conference one day and had a conversation and came back to the next executive meeting and said, how quickly can we do this? Because the first question I got asked was, if we were to partner, how do we submit a deal to you? And that question was really the crux of what kicked it off. How do I get you this opportunity? And we didn't have an answer for that. So we quickly started doing our exploration into platforms and solutions. But that's what kicked it off.
Wow, very cool. And tell me a little bit about deciding from there to saying we actually now need a partner portal. I mean, you kind of teed it up with we need a deal reg system. Were there other conversations around what else you needed a portal for? Or was it really the deal reg that drove that?
The deal reg is really what drove it. Depending on who you asked, they obviously had different thoughts about what this may look like down the road, and where my old boss and myself said, let's pump the brakes. Let's talk about what we need today and then worry about scaling up, because if the question you're being asked is, how do I get you a deal? Then the question we need to answer is, how do I get you a deal, right?
Right.
So we'll worry about the other things. So when we're exploring solutions, we will look to what are the other things that we can do with these platforms that will factor into the decision-making process. But number one is, does this meet our needs for deal reg? How quickly can we get this thing stood up, right? And then when we start to talk about the other things, we'll figure out how fast we can do that and what's the order of priority.
Nice. Thank you. So now you mentioned how fast can we stand this up. You guys should know they might be one of our quickest implementations we've ever had. So talk a little bit about that. How long did that take? But more importantly, like, how were you able to go so quick?
Yeah, so the business challenged us when we finally got a decision on platform, and it was, can you do this in less than 60 days? And we said, yes, assuming the needs that you've expressed are still the needs that you have today. So if you want deal reg, give me 30 days. So thankfully, our implementation specialist was on board. We said, we are about to go fast. He said, great, whose car are we taking? And we just ran. And really it was a bare bones approach. Let's get this stood up. Let's ingest the information that we need, or if we're all in agreement on what that information is. And if we are, we'll get that up. We had a number of prospective partners at the time, so we were able to have some conversations there and say, does the UI make sense for you? Is this user friendly enough? Does it guide you to really what you need to provide to us? The answer was yes. And so fast launch, we are big proponents of make your decisions, make them with conviction, and then fail fast. Our CEO is a big proponent of that. And that's kind of the methodology that we followed.
That's great. By the way, if anyone ever asks, can you do this in 60 days? The correct answer is no. Just say no. And then if you exceed that, that's great. But okay, very good. Well, so this was, and correct me if I'm wrong, roughly 3 to 4 years ago?
About 4 years ago.
About 4 years ago. Okay. So now in the last 4 years, you started really with we need deal reg. We're going to get up and fast. Tell me about the progression over the last 4 years. How have things changed and how have you been able to adapt the program and the portal, all the above?
Yeah, so outside the obvious, just organic growth, new partners, obviously the partner manager team growing. We have made some enhancements based on the types of partners that we brought on. So when we started, we really, at the recommendation of InPartner, it was no more than 3 partner types, levels, whatever you want to call them, right? So we focused very heavily on that. We were out in front of that communication with not only partners, but our partner team and the rest of the organization. But as I'm sure most people who have a partner program have experienced, next thing you know, well, this partner is unique. So they don't fit in this level. Well, why don't they fit in that level? What are the considerations? Well, they need an additional field. So it's really gotten more into trying to figure out what the right, I'll say, structure for those levels are so that we're not too rigid, that we can't provide any sort of flexibility for partners that need it, while also not going down the path of let's completely customize by partner. Now, in fairness, we have 8 different partner levels at this point, so we've made our mistakes. But that to me is really where things have evolved. The other piece is, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we made a couple of acquisitions over the last couple of years who have complementary products to our original payments platform. Then going into those conversations of, well, do partners even want to sell that? Because some of them have no desire. Now, we can go back to the customers they bring on board and sell those. And those are some of the conversations that are taking place. And I think the one common theme throughout all of this has been, okay, you're out there making handshake deals. We got to talk about how we're going to operationalize this. Because we have to do this somehow through the system. So, and again, I can say this, I was in sales and a sales manager for 10 plus years. Salespeople go out and promise a lot. And then they come back and say, you go figure out how we're going to do this. And so that's kind of the story that's happened over the last few years.
Yeah, Brad can attest. I've never done that. No, that's great. And I want to double down. So I think you said this, correct me if I'm wrong. So you have now kind of an existing channel program with partners that are reselling your product. Some of these new products have almost created this new program for you of a referral type model where it's like, we don't want to be involved, but hey, you guys should go run with this. Did I hear that correct?
So partly, yes. We, just to backtrack a second, the way we built out our Salesforce instance was to the payments business that we were. So everything, you look at the account object, you look at the opportunity object. Again, I'll say it candidly, we Frankensteined it to a degree, right? So we've been going through some massive projects this year. Number one was we need to clean up the account object. Anything that doesn't represent a physical location, move it somewhere else. And now we're going sales channel by sales channel, unifying what I'll call our opportunity record type. So when we made these acquisitions, we couldn't add those products to the opportunity record we have today. And we didn't represent them as products. So we had to create a new opportunity record type to allow the sales teams to sell those products. We're now bringing that all together. We're making sure that we have opportunity products. So those that want to sell those products today, I can't represent those in the portal. Big problem. When we're done with this project, I'll be able to. But as we're preparing to do that, the conversations are taking place of which partners actually want the ability to sell themselves versus which we're going to bring you payments customers. What you do from there, it's on you.
Interesting. I really like that. Okay, and Rebecca, you mentioned you were just coming on board kind of right as this was all starting. So talk to me a little bit about, I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, part of why you came on board was to help support this program. And tell me about the team you've developed and how you've supported the program.
Coming into this role, I think we had 8 partners, technically 8 partners signed. There was about 4 that were contributing every month to the deal count. The first year I was there, we closed, I think, north of 1,300 deals, right? That was the partner channel. Now let's fast forward to this year. We are on pace to close over 5,000 deals. Okay. Our partner portfolio is very large. Early on, I think the first 2 years, it was like, you get a partnership, you get a partnership, you get a partnership. And I think we quickly learned, number one, building out all these levels to fit all these personalities, partner personalities, wasn't the way to go. We can't nuance every type of contract and every type of relationship here. So we learned, right? And we learned that we want to look at this strategic and kind of bucket it. Strategic, maybe general, kind of look at what our team is bringing us and how much value in spending the time on the relationships of these, right? So there was a lot that happened really, really quick, right? And it was just me. It was me managing the tool, giving the partners support, supporting our partner managers, and also too, working with Sam to figure out really the operations of all of this. So I think biggest challenges, along the way is that, we started off out of the box, right? Small, couple levels. We went a lot of levels, a lot of partners really quick. Learned, failed in some ways. A lot of things that we learned from the sales team was that, they had all these strategic pushes, but like we didn't know about them. So it's something that we had to get a lot better about. Like, listen, like we need to be heavily involved in this process. Like Sam said, like, you can't just say, okay, now you guys deal with it. How about before you push it, kind of just give us a little heads up here, So, I mean, there's definitely challenges. Building a team, I really kind of just, and this team didn't build overnight. I mean, it was like I got one hire after like a year and a half, and it took some time. Certainly took some time, right? Because we're a new channel, and so no one knew what to expect on this growth and what we really needed for support. We're unique, right? So my team, we're doing all of those things. We're managing the tool, the support, the operations, and other channels don't operate this way, and so we're kind of siloed in a way. But bringing on a team, I kind of really thought, all right, I need someone. I'm thinking about all the different things that I was doing to support the whole channel myself. So I have a girl that she came in and she learned it all conceptually, right? But she's sort of on the admin end. She's doing a lot of the partner stand-up stuff, a lot of the organization for the rest of the team. And one of the other partner types that we've brought on recently and that we're using through our resellers is technology partners, right? So there's a lot of tech piece to that, building APIs, right? And that fell on my team too, and I was doing it. So I knew that was like a real plug and play that I really needed to hire. I needed to hire someone that could take that lift off of me. I'm trying to do all of it, and I'm building these APIs for these partners. Now listen, our partner team has said to us, our partner strategic managers, we sell our partnerships because of our partner support team. You guys answer and deliver within 24 hours or less. You can't find that anywhere. And you guys are a big selling point. So obviously we like what you're doing, keep doing it. So, I hire Nick, and he is the plug and play. And then he quickly on his own learned our product inside and out. So he's kind of like the product specialist too for our team. And then, building out a little bit more, I was kind of a little more strategic and needed someone who came from the industry. Coming from the industry, she really understands the concept of payments, the front end, the back end, and just our sales cycle. It was really making sure that everyone who I brought on understands the product that we're selling and what it takes to get the deal across the door. So, we're a little bit of a mixed bag of a team, but together we're supporting this now $15 million channel, right? On pace to do over $5,000 payment deals this year, and we're rocking it. There's days that you know, we're probably all doing the work of 1.5 to 2 people. So there's days that, you know, we're looking at, okay, maybe we're upping the headcount, or what else can we automate? However, scalability wise, we also have been saying from, you know, at the top, we need to kind of scale our partner levels and what we're offering to them. So again, just big learning experience, a lot of failures along the way, a lot of challenges, a lot of frustration. Definitely have a lot of gray hair, for sure. But, you know, ultimately, I think we're in a good place to hit 2025 rolling. And I think we have a good plan ahead. And Partner has provided us this amazing foundation to service our partners. Our partners love it. They love us. And, you know, that's what's keeping us going.
Well, that's great. And I love, Sam, you talked a little bit about failing fast so you can adjust. And that's one of the reasons I think we wanted to have you guys come talk in. We work obviously with a lot of different organizations, and that's one of the things we see is so many people make a decision. We find out quickly it's a wrong decision, but we live with it for 2, 3, 4 years. And right, it's tough to move in a big organization. You guys have been very agile. And I love watching it. You know, we're kind of building the plane as we fly it. Is that the phrase or whatever, right? So maybe give us an example. I know of one specifically, but give us an example of like where leadership came in and said, "Hey, we really love this idea. Let's do it." And you had to learn fast. Like, no, that was the wrong direction.
Yeah, and just yeah, okay. Just to hit on something you said before I go into that, it's the moving fast, the failing fast. There's 2 things that are absolutely critical that have allowed us to do that. We have a very strong change management process methodology in place, right? Our levers for communicating prior to things happening, as they're happening, after the fact, and when we pivot, why are we pivoting, right? Because there's impact to everybody involved. The other big thing, and it's not only important to that, but it's important to the success of Rebecca's team, is responsiveness. And to her point about, you know, our partner managers using that support mechanism as a selling point, it's because whether I get you the answer or not, I am going to give you a response about what's happening next, so nobody's in the dark at any point. Now, specific example, and this is a really good one. Going back about 2 years now, I believe, our marketing team had gotten involved and they were given a demonstration of TCMA. TCMA is an incredibly powerful tool for some of your partners. Now, the way our levels are, it was probably one of our 3 levels that we assumed would heavily use. The other 2 was kind of a question mark. Mistake on our part, and this is kind of a failing opportunity. We were under the assumption of, wow, this is going to take a lift off of Rebecca's team from having to manage asset libraries. It's going to take off a lift off of marketing from creating all this co-branded material that they then pass to her to upload into the portal. But we didn't ask the question early enough of who's going to talk to these partners? What's the anticipated usage? Who said that they want this? And so we went through the launch process. We had a couple of beta partners that were going to use this, and we did a couple of webinars to prepare them, and beta launches and nothing happens. So we all come back to the table and say, what happened? We go back to the partner. Well, we don't really have the bandwidth. Okay, let's grab a different beta partner. So we did that. We launched it to, I think, 3 or 4 at that point. Same story. So we sat on it for a little bit and realized, okay, there's either a way that we can push this thing forward or we need to cut our losses and pivot. And at the same time, one of the things that the leader of our partner channel had asked was, we need better analytics. And so we looked at both sides of this and we said, okay, TCMA is a great tool, but TCMA is probably not the right tool for us today. So does it make more sense to pivot that spend, go get Analytics Studio stood up, start to drive some value where our partner managers can go have value-added conversations about performance, about usage, and we will eventually, and we're already starting to have the conversation, we will come back to TCMA, but we need to do a better job of testing what I would call the marketplace. What's the appetite? How many people have that appetite? And is that enough to justify the spend?
Yeah, and I liked earlier when we were talking with Penny, we talked about how important that is, understanding what resources your partners want, what they need, what they're asking for. So I love that. I love that story. Not to say TCMA is not great, because it is. That was not the point of that, just so everyone knows. But no, I love that. Thank you so much. So talk a little bit about, you mentioned you're kind of revamping your sales force. A lot of it due to some of these acquisitions and stuff. So how is that impacting, and vice versa? How is the portal impacting those decisions, and how are those decisions impacting what you're now doing with the partner portal and deal reg and all that?
Yeah, so we were fortunate to be able to break this out by sales channel as we went through this unification project. We did our direct sales channel first, as there was going to be likely the biggest impact there because we had a lot of people that had the ability to sell each of these products. From the acquisition companies, we kept a lot of the original sales members, so we had the right people to sell. That's the direct channel. In enterprise and in partner, there was going to be a learning curve, right? We didn't acquire anybody from either of those channels. So we got the direct sales channel done. That's great. We are finishing up enterprise right now. But the beauty of partner going third is it's allowed us the opportunity to have longer conversations and more strategic conversations about what are all the things that we need to do to ensure that this goes smoothly. And I go back to, we're going to have a significant chunk of partners that have no interest in learning these products and learning how to sell them. And that's okay. But we need to start talking about amended agreements. Do they want us to be in contact with their customers, right? Because that's their customer. Are we allowed to go talk to them? What kind of marketing can we do to them? We don't want to inundate them with phone calls and emails and things. So we're methodically going through that process right now, and it really is to a degree partner by partner, and we've needed this time to do that. And by the way, we're not done. We have a lot more work to do. But that's kind of been the beauty of that. Now, when we think about those partners that may want to sell those products, that's where we had, and if you've never gone to Brain Labs, go to Brain Labs.
Go to Brain Labs.
We spent about 5 hours there yesterday talking about just this. We're going to have to figure out, for those partners that are in the same level, some want to sell it, some don't, how do I present them? What's that UI for those partners? Because I don't want something in their face that they don't want anything to do with. So what's the flexibility that we're going to have in the portal based on how we revamp Salesforce, right? Do we need to pull in custom objects? Do we need to pull in different fields off the opportunity than we do today? It'll be a complete data overhaul, but now's the time to have those conversations. I go back to the change management piece. This is the preparation. This is the conversations. We will start getting into the solutioning, but this is really requirements gathering. And so, like I said, having that leeway, having that runway, because we were able to do the other two first, has been monumentally helpful. But it's going to be a lift on the in-partner side as far as portal revamp, bigger lift on Salesforce, but that has to be a coordinated effort.
Yeah, totally. So thinking about that, you guys have made several iterations and changes, and you've got this massive Salesforce project. Is there anything that you think back and you go, well, thank goodness we did it this way because that's making it massively easier? And or is there anything you're like, man, I wish we would have known this 4 years ago because we would have done this differently to be more flexible?
I think it's actually, it probably goes back to my biggest frustration, which is we have not really gotten much further than here is a deal reg platform and a way to go look at deals. And I'll give you a great example. So I think it was 2 years into this partnership, we were looking at how do we make this more interactive? How do we get people to want to come to the portal to do more than just register deals? And we met with a consultant from InPartner, and we were warned ahead of time. He's a very blunt individual. It's great. I have thick skin. And he pointed out a few things. And, one of the things that was the first thing he pointed out, we had all of our social media tied to our homepage. And at the time, we were very early in our social media journey. And God bless our marketing team. They've done a phenomenal job getting us from where we were to where we are. One of the first things he pointed out was, you have this link here. You know how many followers you have on there? You know how much content you're posting on this social media platform? Because I don't think you want to drive people there today. There's not much there, and there's not many people looking at it. Perfect example. Great. Get rid of it. Gone. So instead of trying to plug things in like an events calendar and force the issue of, we think people would like this, it's really forced us to take a step back and say, listen, the portal is what it is today. All right. They're going to register deals. They're going in to check the status. They're going in to get their financial information. But that's the value today. Now, again, back to what we're doing right now. Now we're having those conversations of, okay, where can we add value? We're not going to force the value, but if there are things with these products, whether it adds journeys to go learn a compliance product, those are the things we can start to figure out what, where, how we put those and what that user experience becomes.
Well, that's great. So I'm curious, and I can't remember, we sat up here in your conference room 18 months ago, 2 years ago, whenever that was, right? And we brought in a lot of your team. I think I came out with like 30 or 40 different things your team wanted to do. So how do you guys balance and say, hey, Chris, I love it, great idea, but we got to scale this back? How do you prioritize what's the low-hanging fruit versus we can do this, but in the future?
Yeah, it really, this is going to sound worse than I mean it, but there has to be an element of challenging their assumptions. One thing that you all do very well is coming to the table and showing all these great things. These things are coming. These things exist. They're all exciting, right? Some more than others. You put that in front of a salesperson, all they're seeing is dollar signs, right? That's either gonna increase the value of my deal, that's gonna increase the stickiness of my deal, or that's a new thing that I can talk to my existing partners, prospects about, whoever. That's all well and good. Back to what's going to be the most impactful short term versus what's going to take a little more strategic discussion about not only how we want to go to market with this, but how we operationalize being able to sell this. Because the market may have an incredible interest today and we have no way to operationalize it. So you go sell a deal, I can't fulfill that deal. That's a problem. It's not a problem because we can't fulfill the deal. It's a problem because it creates a bad customer experience. And as you're launching new items, the worst thing that you can do is create a bad customer experience. So I say challenge in the sense of, you guys need to think a little critically about, are you ready to do this? Do you have partners that have expressed interest? And in that conversation, what's our ability to operationalize it? So we can come up with our, easiest to hardest. You can come up with your most impactful, the least impactful, and then let's mirror those two things up and come to an agreement on what this roadmap really should look like.
I like that a lot. Thank you. So I would just a couple final wrap-up questions here, and then if there's any questions from the audience. But if you had to kind of boil down the last 4 years of experience, anybody, depending on where they're at in their journey, they could be very similar, like starting out brand new channel program or a very robust channel program, but wanting to deliver more for their partners. Is there anything you have like a main golden nugget takeaway to say, here's how you really stay flexible and resilient through these massive amounts of changes?
You want to answer that first?
For me, I can say trying to support it. When Sam brought me on, he kind of was like, just go with it. And that's kind of what I did. So, there were many things I probably took on, right, that were too much along the way. So there is maybe not a golden nugget comment, but what I can say is just don't be afraid to fail. You gotta try. You gotta try. So a lot of the things that the team has brought to us along the way, it's like, you're right, we don't have it operationalized. So how's it getting done? Well, Becca's team's going to do it manually, right? And we are, right? So listen, were there a few failures along the way, some big ones, and we had to own up, but it's learning from it and then understanding where in that process it gets operationalized. What's going to make that better? Right. And I think that's what we learned along the way, too, from working directly with our partner reps, our partners, is, building relationships with them and them asking questions, or where can I find this, or what happens here, knowing that that's the information they want to see. So I think there's no one golden nugget, but it's a few things. It's definitely relationship building, right? Building that trust even with your partners from a partner support, knowing that you're going to respond to them or say to them, it's really not in my lane. Let me get you the right question. Let me get you to the right department. So it's the relationship. It's the trust that you build. And also, too, it's like Sam said, it's the responsiveness of all of that. It's not being afraid to fail and saying, I do apologize. Let's take a step back here. Let's look what went wrong. Where could we do this together better? That's another thing. And then it's communication. It's communication with the sales team, the people who are selling it, but also the people who are selling the partnerships. So it's those three things like kind of married together. Has been the golden nugget on my end for my team.
Yeah, I would say two things. Number one, and I believe this to be true regardless of what role you're in, but find a way to put yourself in your customer's shoes. And it's a little more complicated on the partner side because you have multiple layers of customers. You have end user customers, you have partner customers, you have your internal partner team. Everybody's your customer, especially I'm talking from a sport perspective. The sooner you can find a way to put yourself in their shoes, you are more easily able to anticipate questions, challenges, roadblocks. If you're able to think as a partner rep, okay, when I'm thinking about the UI of the portal, I have a better perspective to start from. So I can get a lot of work done before I go present this to somebody, and I'm starting from a place of hopefully further progress. And the other big one, I'm going to steal a phrase from the gentleman who runs our enterprise sales team, relentless forward progress. Things are going to happen. If you're making the decision to go do this, go do it. You will have roadblocks. Things will fail again, to Rebecca's point. But stay focused on the goal. Continue to communicate, over-communicate to everybody involved, all your customers, everybody. But at the end of the day, forward progress, go.
And finally, I just want to dive in then to the last thought is with all these changes, all these acquisitions, a lot's going on with your partner program, both in the portal and outside. How are you keeping that partner buy-in and communicating all this change and keeping them engaged and happy?
That's a great question.
Other than Rebecca, we know that's obviously the answer.
Yeah, she sends a lot of, no. We are actually just now dipping our toes into exactly that, because a lot of these things, they've been smaller scale. So again, prepare, communicate, deploy, go back, revamp, right? Kind of your general change management philosophy. Now this is going to happen on a much grander scale. So we will have to, and similar to we've done with the other channels, we will have to communicate very early about the things that are taking place in Salesforce and be very clear about what those things may or may not impact for our partners. We will then need to do user acceptance testing. We'll probably have to pull some partners in for that. We'll have to use our own team internally. We'll have to get sign off on those things. We'll have to go back and test what's changed through user acceptance testing. We'll have to then go do training. Now, big question mark, who trains partners? Is that the partner managers? Are they going to be equipped to do that? Are they going to want to do that? Do they have the ability to get around all of their, we were talking about it yesterday. We have a lot of partners. Are we doing webinars for some of our larger partners? All of those things are in discussion right now to figure out, okay, what's the best communication method to these partners? How often do we want to and can we communicate to these partners? And where do we really need to keep them in the know? Because in fairness, there are things that we are going to do on the back end that they will never see or know about. So we have to be very clear and intentional about, we know that this is going to have an impact, therefore we need to communicate it. This is not going to have an impact. Do we or do we not need to communicate it?
I love that. Well, based on the orientation of the sun, I think that means our time's about up. So awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.